Today, I'm joined by Ramzi, a seasoned business leader, entrepreneur, and advocate for both innovation and empathy in the workplace. Ramzi is a managing partner at Petra Insurance Brokers, where he combines strategic insight with a deep commitment to people-first leadership. Beyond the boardroom, Ramzi is a proud father of two daughters. His younger daughter has been diagnosed with ADHD, a journey that has deepened his personal connection to neurodivergence and fueled his interest in psychology. His older daughter, inspired by the same passion, is moving to Canada to pursue a career in psychology. In our conversation today, Ramzi shares insights from both his professional life and personal experiences, offering a thoughtful perspective on fatherhood, neurodivergence, and the power of understanding our minds and each other. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, let's start at the beginning. Could you tell me a little bit about your early years and what you were like as a student?
Yeah. So I grew up in Dubai. Um, our family's been here. My father's been here from the '60s, so I grew up here, basically throughout the '80s. And I was put into an English speaking school. It's actually called Dubai English Speaking School. And so I struggled. I just personally, now that I think about it, I felt distant. I had friends, but always trying to kind of fit in. I don't know if it was cultural or if it was super British. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I do know that I saw a report card recently from grade 4 or something, and I was very much a chatty child. Like he's a good student, intelligent, but he talks too much. He's a chatterbox. It was actually in the report. Something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And back then the schools were hardcore. Like they would hit you if you were not behaving, which is how it was back then with a stick. Imagine, right? So I guess there was a lot of. If I look back at it now, it's pretty crazy. Like for kids to go through that, right? It's scary. It
Absolutely.
would never happen at all now. I mean, that would be abuse, right? But that's what happened back then, and I'm quite sure it's shaped me and my friends back then in terms of fearing authority. To be very honest with you, I
Yeah.
mean that's just not a. It's, it doesn't take rocket science or psychologists to figure that one out, right? So you just kind of go with the flow and think that's how it is. You're just a kid. You didn't like it, but that's how it is. Right? So.
And when you say there, you fear authority, what goes on for you physiologically, mentally? What's happening in the moments where there's an authority figure, and you kind of, because I know that feeling. As you know, I see a police car sometimes, and I'm like, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I saw a police car yesterday. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I was like just trying to make sure that I'm
Yeah.
not on my phone or something like that. And actually, it's maybe into a bit of a rebel growing up because my personality is very I don't want to say defiant, but I reject if I'm always afraid of something. I don't know where that came from. I like to fight that. I like to go again, even if it's irrational.
Yeah.
It's my way of, um, creating some sort of sanity in my life because it's irrational fear. And then, police and others, they're human beings just like us, right? And then also you're an authority figure on other people, right?
Yeah.
If I'm the managing partner of the company, so they all look at me as the boss, which makes me uncomfortable because I don't want to be treated, in a way that's not authentic to who I am as a person. And so there's then that, even as a leader, which I look at myself as a leader, like I as a parent and in this business, I am a leader. But I'm probably looked at a lot of times, unfortunately, as as an authority figure because I pay salaries or I sign the checks,
Yeah.
and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's not. I mean, I understand. I accept it now a lot more, and I understand this is the responsibility that I have. But that's where that whole authority thing kind of sh- shaped me in a way early on in my career. As I grew older, to be more of a bro or more of a cool whatever, trying to fit in even with your team, right?
Yeah. That's just
Uh,
what I was going to ask. Do you think that's part of you trying to fit in again? And maybe two reasons. Maybe it's trying to fit in and wanting to be part of that team, which is obviously a fantastic leadership. Does that even make sense? But in leadership that is so important. But is it back to them early years where I maybe you didn't feel you fit in and you want to fit in, and also you don't want the external world to interpret you as a fearful individual, something to be
yeah,
frightened.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's exactly it. Because my first job was crazy. Like, it was just this place in, my first real job was in Jordan, and I was living in Canada at the time. Actually, I grew up in Canada. My culture is Canadian. I play ice hockey. I play hockey. So like all these things. Like, I wake up 4 o'clock in the morning to watch live games. And I pay subscription for that. So I'm part of the Canadian Business Council. So I'm very much Canadian, but I am by blood. I'm originally Palestinian,
Yeah.
and I wanted to go back to the Middle East. So when I was in the UAE, we went to Canada for many years, up until the end of university and then some. And then I wanted to kind of experience the Arabic culture. So I moved to Jordan to find a job and work there and kind of be there for a few years. My first job was just horrendous, because in my the general manager over there was just crazy. He was a control freak, and really, really angry all the time, and wanted to be afraid people to be afraid of him. And he just looked like a fool all the time, right? So, and to be honest with you, it was just horrendous. And I quit. I'm like, screw this. I'm out of here. And then I had like a couple of years of thinking about things. Then I took another job afterwards. I'm in my early 20s by now. And honestly speaking, now that I'm talking to you, it's funny. I've always admired my managers, the ones who managed me, or directly managed me. They were my mentors and people that I respected a lot. And sometimes I just saw them as losing out in the corporate world as well. Like, they were good people, but they just didn't cut it in terms of moving up or getting the accolades or the compensation that they deserve. And some of them just simply burnt out. So
Well,
that was also a mix of what I saw just before I took on what I'm doing now as a business,
yeah.
as a partner in a business. So there was always these conflicting things as I was growing up. What is the right thing to do? To be tough, to be super compassionate, probably somewhere in between. Like, it's good to be compassionate.
Mhm.
There's a point of being a people pleaser, which is not good, you know.
Mhm.
And there's a point of being super, like, super tough and angry when you don't even need to be. Like, let's be, it's not required. So that part really stems from when I was a kid, because um, you don't know what you're supposed to be like. It's tough. It's tough. You don't know, what is your vision? What are you supposed to be like? Are you supposed to be tough? You're supposed to be super kind. People walk all over you. The whole
Yeah.
thing about friends, nice guys finish last, all that stuff, which I don't believe in.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't believe in that. After a while, I didn't believe in that. I just think that when you take a certain compassion element to your life, you have to do it for yourself first, and then you can do it for others. And I
Well,
discovered that recently. Like, when I say recently, over the past couple of years, and even more so in the last 6 months. So basically, I grew up really harsh on myself, really harsh, to the point where I didn't need any criticism from anyone else because I'm already giving it to myself. And that stems from when I was a kid. Because when you're going through that kind of authority like situation at school, you grow up with that. It's part of your subconscious. And so I wouldn't be able to take, I work with my father, and, he wants the best for me, and he's my dad. So he's going to tell me, do this, do that. What do you, all that stuff. And I wouldn't be able to take any criticism from him. It would cause a lot of tension. Although he wasn't wrong. He wasn't actually wrong now that I think about it. But I just didn't have the cup was filled with my own criticism. You
And
know,
sometimes I think you'll find this even with your daughters. They'll take advice outside of the family before they take it from their family. Um,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
and
we
that
find it a
explains a
lot.
lot. Yeah,
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 we find it a lot more difficult to take it from our partners or our parents, but if it comes externally, we do. Um, I commend you on leaving that first job, and respecting yourself, because that wouldn't have been an easy decision to make. But I guess in our younger years, we're still exploring that identity. We don't have the huge amount of responsibility that comes with being a parent, and
yeah.
you get to a point in your life where you're planning your career path, and okay, I can't just keep jumping. Or well, you can when you're finding yourself, but there's more pressure, I think, later in life, because
Yeah.
I think where I relate to you there is that identity, that lack of identity. I remember back, if we weren't hit with sticks, that had left, thankfully, in most schools. But there was the subtle put downs, and that's through lack of understanding of, you're very intelligent, you would do better if you only tried. People only knew how hard you were trying,
Yeah.
with everything else going on, with the sensory overload, and burnout, trying to fit in, back to that fit in. If they really knew how hard you were trying, they wouldn't say it. So it's never to say that anyone intentionally knew what they were doing, but that impacts you
100%.
majorly. And
But
it means,
sorry to cut
sorry,
you off. So go on. Sorry.
well, for me, it meant that it took me a long time to know who I was, because that people pleasing comes because you want that acceptance, because you feel then you're inferior, you're not good enough. So trying to unlearn that, and rebuild new skills, respect yourself. And when you say compassion there, the compassion towards yourself is just the most important element, really.
100%. And I don't think enough people understand that it's okay. They don't even, it's actually quite sad that people go home and come to work, leave work, and they're not happy with themselves. You know, I think that's very sad, and
Yeah.
uh, and I think it happens quite a bit. I see less proud people every day than the people. So before I used to think that, oh, somebody who's super proud of themselves is arrogant, but I was actually jealous of them. I was envious. Like, these people are super. And if it came from now I respect ones that say, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm proud of myself. Yeah, I did this, I did that. Without there's an element of not being conceited about it, I think, but actually being proud of yourself. I respect that so much now, and I've been using that language more over the past 6 months about myself, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I'm proud, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah. It does. It
Yeah.
does. And it's not an easy thing to do. And it's not an easy thing to speak. Even when you do it, it's not easy to speak out to
Mm.
others and say that you're doing it. You kind of maybe want to hide that part of yourself. So yeah, it is amazing. It's very hard to get there, as you said. You don't want to seem arrogant, but that's, again, not wanting the outside world to perceive you in a certain way, which is irrelevant. As long as the people you love you for who you are, then that's all that
Yeah.
really matters. And it's going back to that.
100%.
We care so much about the people who don't really know us, and we take for granted the people who know us and love us for who we are. So
Yeah, I agree. And people blame social media and all that stuff. I don't think it's about social media. I mean, let's be honest. This was before social media. Like, we all had these things where, are we cool enough? Are we, it's a human nature thing. Whether it doesn't matter about the technology or whatever, there's always something there. I think it has to come down from inside. How much do you value yourself without the need of validation outside? You
yeah,
know? And really, I think schools are a problem. Like, I really believe schools are a problem. This is maybe a controversial thing to say, but
no,
I think it's all about these things where, like, what are you doing in school? Are you accepted? Are you, even the teachers? And I see some of the teachers with the current teachers with my daughters. Some of them are good. Some of them I don't think are, like their jobs, to be honest with you. And I think it comes out in just the emails that you see. You don't want your daughter or your kids to have a free pass in life. They need to be held accountable. But I think sometimes the whoever it's just it's just a part of life that we all have to accept. People are going to be like that in a certain position of power, which I think teachers are some of the most it's top important professions in this world. Let's put it that way. I think it's up there with doctors, and in terms of responsibility.
Yes, very much so. They have so much influence over our children's lives.
Big time, and it influenced us. And I must say, like, I can't blame teachers for everything. I don't, but they played a big impact when I was a kid in terms of the whole authority thing, and then that need of validation. Plus, your parents play a role. Like, if you don't get 100%, why not? You know, and they all mean well. We all mean well. Like, nobody's really nasty, but it's tough. There is that's from they've basically what do they call it? Projecting probably what they experienced onto to their kids, right? And there was a time in school, in high school, right? I was always considered an intelligent kid, like, just whatever, and I didn't really care about that. I didn't at some point I didn't even believe it, and even my achievements seemed to be not good enough. And so I just stopped trying for a period of 3 years. Like, I barely got into university, like, in Canada. And I was lucky that one university that accepted me happened to have a lower percentage to get in. I think they just needed more people. I was lucky, I was lucky. And then in university, I actually cared. So I started doing much better, and it's supposed to be harder, you know?
Yeah.
So I just thought that I stopped caring because I felt it didn't matter what I did. And there was always criticism of myself and of others. So then what's the point of trying if you're going to feel like that, you know?
Yeah.
That's really what it is, and it's about validation. And I was a kid, like, we're talking about 14, 15 years old. How am I supposed to understand that you should not seek validation from outside? That's really the lesson here, right? So that's now that I'm thinking back at it, I wouldn't have been able to change anything, but I just think that sometimes your environment shapes that situation.
It has a
Yeah.
huge impact. It does. And, back to that, I guess, that generation, how can they know what they didn't know? As we do as parents, we do the best we can now. Something will probably evolve and change. And, we can't, and as you said, that generational impact, of course it does. It continues down the line. But as long as you make them changes as you go, you're making a better future for your grandchildren, and so on and so forth. I can't get it perfect. I'm only human. I'll still have my triggers from time to time, depending on what's going on. It's just about being as aware and holding yourself accountable, and that's what's really important. And I also the aspect of, like, high school. My primary school was a lot smaller, so it was probably easier for me there wasn't as much going on that I could focus to a degree, but still struggled. Secondary school for me was, you just may as well give up, because everyone was speaking German in my eyes. I could carry the first few minutes of it, so there was a lot. But just like you, I went to university, and that's where I thrived, because I could study in my own way.
Yeah.
You do 10 classes, okay,
Exactly.
and the same thing happened. You go to classes, only so much of the information is coming, but you get your notes, and then I would have worked through it. Now, it's not like today where there's so much more out there. You can go to lessons on YouTube and, LMS, and you can watch them and pause them. And so it's very different. But just like you, it took me to university to thrive, and I did. And that is where I really excelled then in everything, because I knew I could, but the way I needed to, not the way that,
Yeah. 100%. And even the timings of the classes I could pick. I mean, I'm not a morning person, right? So I was able to pick later classes. And that helps a lot, to be honest with you.
It does, because I'm a morning person. So if I could start at 5 a.m., that would be spectacular.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess, how do you think the impact of your childhood has shaped you as a parent, as a father?
Huh. Well, everything, right? So, you know, so for me, like my parents got divorced when I was younger. That's a big impact here. It was a very difficult divorce. Um, and so it was me and my brother, and we really struggled with that. I don't think my parents understand that to this day, how difficult it was. Because, if you think about it, they were also growing. They were probably in their 40s, you know, like my age now,
Yeah.
have their own struggles, and so, but we suffered a lot, especially in like you have two middle, it's like Arabic parents, living in Vancouver, and so it's not as diverse as it is today. So there's a lot of like also there's a lot of difficult stuff at school, bullying, racism. Um, I mean, it is what it is. It's part of the. This is life. It happens. So growing up, I've always wanted to have a family and have a life for for kids, for my kids, whoever they would be, if it's a boy or girl, whatever, that is different than my experience. And that in itself is wrong, in my opinion, to say that, because you're trying to paint a picture before they were even born. But my vision was to have a peaceful home, you know, which I don't think is bad to have as a vision. It's a good thing to have. So when my kids were born, I mean, my first daughter, Gianna is my firstborn, and I struggled the first few months. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I actually panicked a couple months before she was born. I'm like, what am I getting myself into? And then I remember the first day when she was obviously born, and then healthy baby, a really cute kid and everything. And then she came back home, and me and my now ex-wife, were like, okay, we can't return this thing. She's with us. It's true, and it was that feeling of dread. Like it's like, oh my, I mean, nothing against Gianna, but
No,
are we
it's
are,
about you.
are we up to this? And it was very scary. It was very. It was like it felt like it was like my first day of school. So, but you know what? The best piece of advice I had at the time was from a stranger. And it's funny when you're like looking for things, looking for answers, they kind of come to you. Like you attract those answers, either through a harsh way or through a very kind way. You will always get your answers.
Yeah.
Um, that person said to me, that individual, he said to me, you just need to be yourself. Just be yourself, and that's it. There's no such thing as being a dad. You are a dad, but be yourself. So I said, okay, you know what, let's do it. So I'm naturally a goofy father. Like it's just my style. Like,
Yeah.
so me and Gianna really bonded. Like we had a good time, and I had when I was living in Jordan. The first few years of her life, the office where I worked in was next to my house. It was like a 2-minute walk. I was very lucky because there's a lot of time together, and I always made her a priority. And we had a good time. Like on YouTube, we have like so many videos together and all that stuff. And I just what I wanted her to be is a confident girl, like a confident person, and just be happy and all this stuff. And even as a child, she was always like super funny. Like she was always had a sense of humor. Like it was just she just was like that. She was just trying to make us laugh all the time. And to this day, she's like that. Like she's today, and I think that paid off a lot with the confidence from her family, from her parents, and from from the grandparents and all that stuff. I'm very proud of who she is and who she's become. It's because of she. We played a huge role as parents, of course. I mean, let's be honest. And I think she had some good luck also with teachers. along the way. And we were also very much vigilant in who the teachers are, because me and my ex-wife both had our stories with teachers, right? So we were like, we don't want to let things go, because there is discipline, there's accountability, there's work ethics, you know. But we also, we don't want them to be treated unfairly. It's not right. And so there's a lot of teachings on that for my first one, Gianna. Jasmine, she's a typical number two. She's tough. Like, she's the tough cookie, and she's very, very, she's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful heart. But she's tough. Like, when I say that, she's 13, but I feel like she's 25 sometimes. Like, and I think that comes back to her experience with her sister and all these things. And when I got divorced, she was a bit younger, and I don't, after all is said and done, it's been deemed that the divorce, of course, it affects everybody, but we had a very very good divorce, and me and my ex-wife are good friends. Gianna just graduated from high school. The celebration was about a week and a half ago, and we're all together. We had dinner together, so that's really nice. Like, that's something that really took away all that stuff. So me as a parent, I've always just wanted to you go through things in life, it's okay. Things won't go as planned, and it's okay.
Yes.
And with Jasmine, I feel like sometimes she's very emotional, very deep, got a huge heart, and she feels everything.
Yeah.
So I just want her to know that it's okay to feel that, but life isn't as bad as it seems, especially with her. John is going to be going off to university in Canada. She's going to miss her. This is part of life that she has to go through. She's already sad about that. So it's just about being there for her and with the struggles that she's going through, but not overdoing it as well. Like, it's her journey, it's her battle as well. That makes sense. Like, it's hard. It's hard to explain. Like, you want to be there for them, but you want to let them kind of experience it themselves. Yeah.
I think it's so difficult as a parent, because obviously our role is to prepare them to flee the nest. Someday we won't be around, and we want to give them the tools to be able to survive without us. And it's so hard as a parent, because all you want to do is protect them for, I think, as long as you're around. It won't matter how old they are. So it's really difficult to do, but very important. And, it's just to say there, any child, it doesn't matter whether there's a divorce or there's not a divorce, a first child, a second child, third child, they will always have different parents. You're in a different stage in your life. One child has your full focus. You've got to balance when there's two. Don't know what's going on in your career, financially, if there's illness, if there's so many factors that play a part that you will never be the same parent. So you'll hear children have a very different experience of their childhood growing up in the exact same home. And of course, that's their personalities as well come into play. And so, and the fact that you were able to have a respectful divorce, I think, shows children, and I think it's so important to have that, and to have that relationship with your ex-wife now, and to still stay a family unit, is that if something's not working for them in life, they can change it. Something doesn't have to be forever. It can be for a season and a reason. It doesn't mean that that person's completely gone from your life. It just means that we've created these wonderful little beings, and our time together is not to be anymore, and that changes. And I think that that's okay. Some families feel a need to stay together because of the children, and in fact, that does so much more harm.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, look, it's not like you get divorced overnight, right? It takes a while.
And you also don't want to make that quick decision. Having children is hard, and you've got to navigate like I say on here, when we had Sienna, one of the things we both committed to was we would go to couples therapy, so that we ensured we were both connected on that journey, that we didn't diverge and forget who we are. So, it changes your relationship big time. And that's one. You had two. So it's another change. And again, as you said, we evolve in life, we change, we get to know each other, and it's just wonderful to hear that you're still able to have that beautiful family unit.
Yeah, I would say so, 100%. I remarried, and I mean, I was very careful who I let into my life because of my daughters, you know, and my wife Sam, she's wonderful, and she gets along with everybody, and we're actually all together. Like, we're one team. When I say one team, like even from my ex-wife's side, with all, it's really beautiful, and uh, in some weird way, although I never wanted the divorce. I mean, at all. I don't recommend it. I mean, I really don't. For married couples, like, try your best, But obviously, if you married for the wrong reasons, should get divorced. I mean, it is what it is. But if you don't have to get divorced. I mean, if you can make it work, but it happened,
Yeah.
and we tried to make it work. To be honest with you, and when I wanted to bring in, when I did want to have a relationship. I mean, I was single for a while. I tried the whole dating scene for a while. I mean, it's without going into too much detail, it was very unfulfilling. And then, yeah, to be very, and then, I just decided eventually during this stage of my life what kind of man I wanted to be, and that's when I decided that I do want to be in a relationship that's monogamous. Um, and it's okay. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of guys are like, come on, are you sure you're making the same mistake? I'm like, no. I mean, after 2 years of just kind of messing around, this is my conclusion. To be honest with you, this is who I am. And so then that impact of her personality, and she's a teacher, and so that also impacts how my daughters grew up as well, because she's a part of their lives now. And also that was a challenge, right? So, I mean, there is no right or wrong, is what I'm trying to say here. It's just a matter of doing your best with good
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
And you only hope that your kids, I don't know, it's hard to say, um, know what you've tried to do to make their lives as good as possible, considering that life isn't always as good as possible.
No, and it is. We can't make a perfect, ideal, pain-free life for them. They will experience pain throughout their lives, and the lessons we can give them and guide them during that time
Yeah.
is what will create that. Because hardship will come, and all we want to do is be able to help them be resilient during them times.
Yep.
Know that the bad times will come, but they'll also pass. So
Exactly.
the divorce was hard, it was painful, but now everyone's happy, so it passes. That wave will always crash. We'll have calm shores again.
100%.
With Jasmine has ADHD.
Yes.
When was she diagnosed, and how would you say that impacted you as a father, the family, Jasmine herself?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that in hindsight, I was too tough on her because I didn't understand her, and I do feel a bit guilty about that even to this day. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? You didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew, you know?
Mhm.
And so she was diagnosed officially, I would say, about 2 months ago, or maybe a month and a half ago.
Okay, so it's
But
very
credit to her, to my ex-wife Helen, to her mom. She felt it for a while. So, and we also tested if there's any autism. We did all these checks. We're always hands-on with this stuff.
yeah.
Um, and then there was the when it was, at some point I just saw Jasmine as struggling socially, and just around people. It's tough sometimes. uh, there's a lot of anxiety as well,
Yeah.
you know and so how do I should I ask you, hey, hey dad, how do I answer this message to my friend? What should I say? You know? And I'll be honest with you, I went through the same thing as her. I was text messages would make me nervous growing up. I didn't know how to answer and be accepted and how to answer in a cool way. I'd always over answer things, like over explain, and it wasn't cool enough to do that in a text message or a phone call. So I told her, so I learned this eventually, and trying to kind of guide her and help her and all that stuff. And I think the biggest issue when she was diagnosed was what's next? What do we do next? So we did the proper, in my opinion, properly through seeking counseling, therapists, everything that we could do for her. Also, there was medication involved recently. And even the concept of medication was, at first, I rejected that because I wasn't sure whether we've done enough to do it without medication first, And I did have some trust issues with everyone on that subject, including my ex-wife. I wasn't sure if she was too overwhelmed with life, and that's what she needed to, because they mostly lived with her, and and I'll be honest, like that's what I thought. And then I calmed down a bit, and then also she did do her accountability things to see if she was burnt out at some point, but then she did do certain things to recover. And then, what I said to myself after a while, we discussed it, and I thought it was the right thing to do. And we had to ask her for her permission because I don't want to force it down her throat, literally.
Yeah.
And she was okay with that. And she understood why it's okay. We spoke to her, and I got to give Helen a lot of credit for that. Her mom, so I'm being completely honest with everything, So, so afterwards, we decided to take a anti-anxiety pill, which was Zoloft, for a while, which I felt was the key thing first, as well, along with the therapist who was able to prescribe it. And although she was getting better through talk therapy, and then she got a lot better with this, and even getting on time, being on time for school, finally, having conversations, And then I realized that she does have an attitude thing. This is who she is. She has an. I'm like, okay, good. That person. Now I know who she is. Like, this is her. She's got an attitude, and I then I'm like, okay, I can accept that attitude because it's who she is. And then later on, recently, we started giving. She was prescribed Concerta.
Yeah.
I don't know as much about it as her mom, because she got into it in terms of, and also her mom had, when she was younger, she had the same issues, but she wasn't properly diagnosed. So without her saying so, I think she didn't want, it was obvious, she didn't want her daughter to go through the same thing as she did growing up.
Yeah.
Which in some cases affected our marriage. And I'm not blaming her for the marriage, but obviously I had my anxiety issues. She had her, I had my confidence, self-esteem issues in the marriage, and she had her, it was just, and when you're young in your 20s, it's tough. So I respect and appreciate how much she really pushed for this. Concerta was a bit tough to take, to be honest with you, for her. It was difficult for Jasmine still. It's an on and off process,
to get the measurements right, and
and a lot of emotions when she does take it, so, but I feel like she's on the right track, especially now with her sister leaving. Her sister's like her everything, and so I'm really glad that she's able to be, she's in the right direction now. I feel so. And I'm glad that that she's got her parents that are by her side, and my wife is there, her grandparents are there, and she's got a good support system. I'm very happy for her, and she's very lucky, because I know a lot of kids don't have that support. They might have a lot of they might come from money, people in this part of especially in Dubai, but they're not really cared for. And I hear some horror stories from my daughters, both of them, and what their home life is like. And I'm like, holy crap, this is tough. I mean, it's sad. And to be honest with you, I look at Jasmine as very fortunate, and I really hope she understands that and sees that eventually, because she is, like, she's being taken care of right now, and
You don't
she's,
have to see that until we're, as you just, or as you earlier said about your dad, that some of the stuff he said was actually right. Unfortunately, it's when we're in our own adulthood that we realize, like,
exactly, exactly. Like, that's why I kind of say what I want to say. Like, for example, last week was very difficult on her and the family. They moved homes. It was a tough thing. And then the graduation, it was just very emotional. It was emotional for me, like from the graduation part and all these things. And then basically what it is just absorb the emotion, like let it feel it, just feel the emotion, and it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I conveyed to both. And to be honest with you, like, whether they take it or not, it's up to them. But but I've done my part. Just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is so important because obviously her diagnosis is still quite fresh, and how old is she now?
She's 13 and will be 14 in August.
Okay. So
2 months. Yeah.
the hormonal phases
Oh, yeah.
in your life
Yeah.
as a girl, but neurodivergence
Yeah.
as well, it's a whole other ball game that there is still a lot of research that needs to be done around. If anything, if I look back at the patterns in my life, it was when I hit that menstruation age that the roller coaster, I just couldn't get off it. The real strong, powerful emotions. I can really relate to what you're saying about her feelings. I felt everything and I felt it deeply. Yep. And I still do. And that anxiety, before I would have had anxiety, I would have had panic attacks. And that was me trying to fit in and not be me, not allow them emotions to flow, not feel. Instead, now if I feel something, I feel it. I know, back to that, it will pass. And there's times in your life where you might feel that there is a panic attack coming on, and we work on trying to catch that before you get there. But if you're already at that point, just let it out.
Yeah.
Nothing awful is going to happen. You need to release that, because whatever it is that you're pushing down for so long, it needs to come out. Would you say, because if I look back now and I'm just reflecting, if I was her age and I was diagnosed then, I think I would have found acceptance very hard. Now, as where I am in my life, I understand me very well and why I am the way I am. And I wouldn't change it because it has made me the person I am. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it would have benefited me if people understood, but I don't see it as, I need some support. So that could be headphones, that could be making sure that I'm in somewhere that doesn't have a lot of fluorescent lights, that it's a weighted knee pad, it's, whatever it is that grounds me. But I don't know at that age, because you're very confused, how I would have taken that, because like you, where you were saying the text messages and responding, I thought through that over and over, and should I have sent that? And I talk a lot, I over explain. That's okay, that's me. And I'm not going to try be something that I'm not either. So yeah, I'm just wondering, I suppose I'm curious to, if now, and I know there's a lot more understanding, but how is she around acceptance, or is that a comfortable topic to talk about?
No, I mean, it's very much, we made it very much a non-taboo issue. Yeah. Everybody knows about it. Strategically, I involved my wife, Sam, into this, and I made it clear that we're all in this together. There's no secrets. And it was accepted by, Helen, the mom, who plays a huge role in this. And the reason why she plays a huge role, not because she's a mother only, that is a big thing, but also Jasmine really looks up to Helen a lot. And by the way, that I don't want to say troubled me. I'm like, because Gianna was more like, Baba, this and all that stuff. Although she did obviously respects her, but there was a bond there. But I could, when I accepted that Jasmine was really looks up to Helen, which was tough on me at first.
Yeah.
When I accepted that, I was free, and then I was able to be a good parent actually, because that was about validation, right?
Yes.
And so then that when I let go of that stuff, it became easier to make it less taboo.
Yeah. It's not about you.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's fine. Like the medication is there. There's a certain time. If I'm there, she takes it with me. If she's staying with us, it could be with Sam, so it's all good. There's no issues whatsoever. And she accepts it, and I mean, I haven't heard from her anything negative. I haven't, I do ask. I ask for feedback. When she's with her mom, and she would tell me there's nothing negative. It's actually very much an acceptance thing. I think she feels a lot better. The other day, yesterday, or was it yesterday? 2 days ago, we had lunch at my dad's place, which is her grandfather, and she couldn't eat on a table before. The chewing would be too much for her. So eventually, I would tell her, when I understood that, I told her, listen, just whatever you do, if you don't want to sit there because it's too much for you, just go. No issues. Nobody. I already spoken to everyone, but don't make a big scene about it as much as you can, because people won't understand it and it'll make it worse. If you want to leave, you're more than welcome to leave. No issues. So before that, I had no idea what was going on. I thought she was just rude. And so I'm learning as well, right? So, and then yesterday, for the first time, we're all eating and everything, and I was expecting her to leave, but she had a great time on the table, chatting away, leading the conversation even, and she finished her food. Finishing her food is a big deal, right? Because she couldn't eat around people. Yeah. And so I saw that as a huge positive. Like, I was so happy. And I don't think anybody understood how happy I was, but I was so happy inside. I'm like, yes, she sat down. She enjoyed the conversation, and she finished her food, and the people around her could finish the food as well. Because at one point, I couldn't eat around her. I didn't allow myself to eat around her. I would wait for her to finish. And then I would eat, because she didn't like the way I chewed. I mean, I tried my best to, I'm not.
Yeah. I can relate.
And and I'm not that bad, like, but, and so
you were quite self-conscious.
Yeah. And I couldn't enjoy my food, so, but I didn't want to make a big deal about it. So she can eat, and then listen, I'm going to eat. I don't take too much time to eat. If we're at a mall, for example, let's say we're at a mall, listen, I'll eat, and you finish, I'll hang out with you while you eat. And then maybe you can walk around, maybe buy something from the store while I finish eating. So it was like that. You have to you have to figure it out. I don't know. And then, that's it. And then eventually she's like, no, Baba, I want to eat around you. It's okay. Eat around me. It's fine. Eventually she, got, understood things also from the other person's side as well.
Well, yeah, and that is important, because it's not all about us. We've got to all understand each other and each other's internal worlds, which people will hear me saying a lot. But I definitely relate to the eating. I can hear it very loud. It's like it echoes for me.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear on something else, like, this is the thing that everything in hindsight makes sense now, because one of my biggest issues with Helen, my ex-wife, was this thing. I couldn't eat an apple. Like, and I don't blame her. Like, I used to think, why is she so rude to me? Like, I'm not accepted in my own. It was just, I took it. I didn't know what was going on. Neither did she. Honestly speaking, she just didn't like it. So I would eat an apple sometimes in the bathroom, It got to that level. I'm like, then that affected our relationship
Yeah.
because you don't know what's going on. You think it's just somebody being arrogant in front of you, but now I understand. And we're all growing up, trying to figure it out, basically. So
Yeah, well, as you said as well, you were going through your self-esteem issue, so that would have
yeah,
really fed into that. Oh, there's something wrong with me. When you say that, my dad, when he hears me eating a carrot, or anyone, he's like, "Oh, would you not be afraid you'd break your teeth?" Every time, and you just know it irritates him listening. And being the defiant children that we are, we probably do the extra instead of hiding. But no, the food thing, and it's, we create coping mechanisms in them states, as long as it's not too overwhelming. For her, what's her issue with herself eating food? I'm curious, because that can be very common for neurodivergent individuals.
so when she eats, this is the thing. It's like, it's almost hypocritical. I'm like, you can eat like that, and I can't. And because she's not exactly careful when she eats as well. Like, so I'm like, what's going on there? And I would hold her accountable, because at the end of the day, I don't want to baby her as a special
Yeah.
human being. She is a special person. We're all special, but she needs to be held accountable. Like, look at how you're eating. You know?
Is she self-conscious of eating? Is that why she doesn't like to eat in front of others?
No, but she does. She doesn't mind, and she doesn't mind eating in front of others. She doesn't mind, but she doesn't want
Ah,
people. She doesn't want people to bother her when
why
they're
she?
eating,
Yeah,
and that's her personality.
yeah,
She has a personality where she's like, I'm the queen of the room. There is that thing about her as well, and she's non apologetic in her attitude. So if you stripped away the ADHD, stripped away all that stuff, she still has a very unapologetic attitude. That's just the way she is, you know?
yeah. It could also be that things come out before she filters them. Sometimes
Yeah, you're right. You're right
we
about that.
we
You're
say
right.
something, and then we say, it's only after someone explain. Let's say me, and I'll use my husband, God help him, as example on a constant occasion. But he might say something without even thinking it through. And it would take me even explaining to him why that might have sounded inappropriate, whether it's in a text message to a group, or it's in company, or it's directly to me. He doesn't mean anything bad. It's more the fact comes out. It's not fluffed. It's not dressed up. It's not, I always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You can
Yeah, I agree.
be honest about how you feel, as long as the other person feels in a safe place to receive that, and that they don't feel judged. Whereas he just, sometimes it's just to the point, and that isn't always received well. And that's just, he doesn't filter that out. He definitely means nothing bad by it. And I know that, now, maybe before I didn't, but I guess that's the beauty of knowing that we're both neurodivergent, and our unique differences, and how we can make that work within our relationship and communicate.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's awesome. I mean, but I agree with the whole filter part, but I've seen the filter part with her, like where there's no filter whatsoever. And I've seen the filtered part. She's got that's the beauty about this. Our experience right now with her is
Yeah.
that I'm really understanding who she is. Like, and I'm not going to say the full story, but I was proud of her that she did something on Sunday or Saturday, and I think it was controversial, in my opinion. She took a certain decision that was controversial, and I can't really. I don't feel comfortable saying the whole story, but
Yeah.
it was a controversial decision. Yeah, but I would have said to her, "Don't do that." Maybe 6 months ago. That's rude, or it's unacceptable, even considered unethical. And so after this experience, I said to myself, you know what? I told her how other people may see it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make a call and accept the consequences if they do see.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I've taken my parenting to the next level. Like,
Yeah.
that is me, like, accepting who she is. And she's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I'll take my chances.
Yeah.
You know? So she's got that in her, And so actually, the funny thing is she's very before the whole anxiety thing, when she was before taking the medication, I felt that she had a lot of low self esteem. I don't think it's perfect, of course, it's tough, but
Which is
definitely she's a lot more confident in her own skin, even with things that she knows that people may not agree with her on, which I respect. Like I'll
well
be,
her.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I know you'd said earlier, or in the early stages of us recording, you kind of resisted. You would have been a little bit defiant, and I can relate to that myself. I would have been a little bit more defiant in my teenage years, and I something that maybe not everyone would agree with, I would do, and I think that's part of finding your identity, and as you said, being able to accept the consequences. I'm thinking of my daughter who's almost 2, and my everybody laughs at me because a lot of people laugh, not everyone, because I give her choices. Letting them know the consequences is so important. And then it's your decision.
yeah. And
2 or 13.
yeah, and I thought it was a very shrewd business-like decision that she made with her friends, and I was actually so proud of it that I told my dad, and he's like, "This is wrong." I'm like, "Well, not really. I think this is my perspective. This is her perspective as well." I'm like, "That's her decision." And nothing. Just to be wrong, it's nothing super bad, but it's
Yeah,
a business. It's a normal course of action business decision that happens that she did with her friends on some gift or whatever, and she's happy. She's proud of herself. She thinks it's okay. And honestly speaking, she thinks it's okay. I'm like, you know what? Who am I to stop her
yeah,
if she has the conviction of this, and let her go through her experience accordingly? Why should I, unless there's something illegal, harmful?
of
It's
course.
none of that. It's none of that
No,
at all.
you're teaching her valuable lessons. And as you said, you're saying, look, these are the potential consequences. Base your decision off that. And as long as you're prepared with the outcome, then I
Yeah,
think that's excellent parenting. I really, really do. It's very important. It's not easy to do, but very important.
yeah.
I
So
guess
I was proud of myself with that. I'll say that much. So yeah.
good. And I guess with that experience and I suppose now a deeper knowledge of neurodivergence, how do you think that impacts you in the workplace? Or are you still you're digesting everything and or has your leadership transformed? Had it already started to transform?
Yeah, I think everything happens for a reason, but also I think everything comes in good time.
Yeah.
So there's a term in in Canada. I think it's a North American thing, especially in sports. It says you've got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good. All right. So what does that mean? That means you got to be prepared and wait for the opportunity, and the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity will come, and you can say that when you're prepared. So I say that I look at that as in my parenting and leadership skills and whatnot is uh, everything kind of personal life is one thing and business life is something, but really you're the same person. I mean, you may not use all your personality, like your personal life, into your business, but you are who you are. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's, and in your work, you are who you are. If you're ethical at work, you're probably ethical outside of work. I mean, if you are afraid of things, you're going to be afraid of things at work and outside of work. So when I decided to become a true leader in the spiritual sense and in the emotional sense, besides being a provider financially or a protector, which the reason why that was important for me until, you know, is because I wasn't sure that I had I'm being very vulnerable here. I wasn't sure if I'm able to protect or provide um, um, like 7, 8 years ago. I wasn't sure if I was up to it, and before that, and I don't know why I thought that, but I guess I didn't have enough experience to go through the hardships that I had gone through to learn that I could go through that. So when I got that part all well and done, and I figured out who I am as a man, as a masculine, with masculine boundaries, whatever how I want to be, I was able to go through this super long journey, which I didn't know was going to be this long, of spiritually, who the hell am I? Who am I? And that is more important, to not let your emotions and triggers control you. And that's what I've been trying to learn over the past 3 years, because a lot of things have happened over the past 3 years in my life, especially from a business perspective. You're talking about betrayals, um, lack of loyalty, um, industry, cutthroat, everything. And on top of all that, the personal comes in, and it just feels so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then what I learned is that with my kids is to stay grounded, and don't be emotional. Although I was emotional, and I do regret that, of course, but I'm not emotional like that anymore. I've been able to control my triggers. And that's the biggest weapon that I have for myself. And that has helped me at work. But also, what's helped me at work is that I've been able to acquire, or sorry, um, hire top-notch individuals to support me in the business. Because before I was alone, one-man show almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have other people in the same level as you, or very similar, it's different.
Yeah.
And then when I started to see the divorce as a collaborative relationship, and then others saw that, it became an enjoyable endeavor as well, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. One of the best days of my life was Friday, May 23rd, was my daughter graduated. The four of us were there. And then later that evening, four of us were there for the graduation, which was Helen, Jasmine, myself, and of course Gianna. And then later that evening, we went out to dinner, with Sam, my wife, Helen's partner, and the two girls, and it was just absolutely beautiful. Like, I was on cloud nine, you know. So because we should all be together no matter what, and so that has helped me understand that life isn't, um, leadership at the office. It's not about a scarce way of life. It's abundant. There is solutions to things. So I'll give you a small example. My assistant, she had to go back to Sri Lanka, and she was going to resign, and she was crying on the phone. I'm like, why are you crying? She's like, because I'm going to have to resign. I'm like, do you want to leave the company? She's like, no way. I want to work. I want to be part of this. I'm like, there's solutions to this. I'm like, you don't have to be in the office. We can work it out. You can be remotely working. So that kind of thought process at home with the kids has helped me think of creative ways of finding solutions for people that also impact me positively.
Yeah.
You know, so I would say, like, that's what's helped me out at the workforce here. And I do see people struggling in the office here with their lives, and whenever I can, I help. I don't want to be too much involved with their day-to-day life personally. It's not my space to do so. It's not my place to do so. But I do understand what they're going through, but it's also their journey to understand what they need to do to make things better for themselves as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No, it's true. We can't save everyone.
No,
And we
that's
can
what I've
only,
changed with. That's what I've kind of evolved to becoming, that kind of person as well.
yeah. And it's, giving that lady that opportunity to still work while, dealing with whatever she needed to deal with. That's something you can do. That's something within your power, within your control, to keep someone who's valuable to you. And I guess that goes to where we look at the workplace now and for neurodivergent individuals. For me, that would exemplify if I said to you, look, I find it very overwhelming coming to the office every day. You may say, well, look, why don't you come in 2 days a week, or whatever that is. If someone came to you with what they're struggling with, so I guess, you create a psychological safety within there that people feel they can turn to you when they're vulnerable or overwhelmed, which is very important as a leader. Do you think you'd be able to make them accommodations? Do you think there's anything in place right now?
Yeah, I mean, we. I wasn't expecting this question, but I'm glad you asked it. Um, because yesterday there was a situation that came up, and right now with the UAE and Dubai specifically, it's the commute is ridiculous. It's not the same as it used to be. It's crazy. I mean, it's too much. And so yesterday, I made a conscious call. Like we have to change the way we do things. There is a work from home policy, but
Yeah.
it's limited. So others don't have it. So this comes down to leadership below me. You know,
Yeah.
how can we accommodate people, but also accommodating the business? Right? It's very important that revenues come in. You know, it's very important that you're productive. If that's there, you know, that's all the power to you. You know, so for me, like I'm in the process of this. Actually, this morning we're discussing it. You know, I think we need to be one step ahead of this because
Yeah.
You first of all, to retain good people, you have to, and they will all have similar problems, you know. And so, can you create a policy around that where it's not for one person, but it's for the company?
Mhm.
And are you able to control the level of productivity, or at least encourage it, where you're a good company, like you're earning revenue, you're doing well, you're profitable. So because being profitable is important, not just for the owner's pockets, but without profitability, you can't accommodate anything,
Yes.
right? So I mean, as long as you have leadership, which I believe now, with the restructuring that I've done in the company over the past few months, I feel like that can be better controlled. You know, the reporting can be done in a stronger way, and then we'd be able to have um, a, a employee centric policy for such things. And we're learning as we're going. Like there wasn't that problem before about commute. Now there's we're talking about some people take 2 hours to come to work and leave. I'm like, I don't like that for them. I don't want that for them at all. But
No.
then if they leave the company, they work somewhere else close to their office, close to their house, but that company you know, isn't that great for them for whatever reason, then they're kind of going backwards in their careers as well, right? So I want to put out my strategy now, and this is still an ongoing conversation as of this morning,
Mhm.
is what do we need to do to make it better where it's a balanced situation for all?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be working on currently because it is the name of the game now.
It's so important, where you can to make them accommodations like that. 2 hours in traffic to and from, 4 hours a day is
Not good.
it's not, and you've got to, you have children, you've got to balance
Of
what's
course.
working and what's not. And I guess that's where I speak to companies now and work with them on, where can you start, because no company is going to change overnight. No company is going to put everything in place that needs to go in place. You need to start, get it right with each change, and then move to the next one. And that takes time. It takes understanding. It takes, office layout. There's many different factors. Working hours, like time, it's not always possible. But as we said earlier, I'm someone, I could be up at 5, fire out work until about 3 p.m. and then dead.
Yeah.
Whereas someone else could be 2 o'clock in the day, they're at their peak and they can work right through till really late.
100%. 100%. Look, our issue is that we're in insurance and we're
Yeah,
broke. So you have to work with the time. And the thing is, insurance companies aren't exactly, you know, sophisticated with the times, and not all companies. So you kind of have to be around the time of when they're working. So, but I mean, we have to figure this out. I mean, I want to figure this out as soon as possible. Like for example, we do provide flexible times. People want to come in earlier, they can leave earlier. So we do all that. We do already have a work from home policy. It's limited, but it's there. I mean, it's available. And I'll be honest with you, like people do ask for work from home, and we don't say no.
Yeah.
Usually they're responsible, so it happens. So I think from as a workforce, and actually recently what I've seen, and I was pleasantly surprised online, especially on LinkedIn, ex staff were putting posts on LinkedIn about how much of a great place it is to work at Petra, because we treat people with respect and they're happy there, and all that stuff. And I'm like, really, I didn't ask for that accolades at all. I didn't ask for that, and it was there, and I was so happy that because I was an employee. Now I'm a business owner now, but I was an employee, and I used to always think the corporate world was unfair, you know and so for me, if that's what's being talked about us in the market, that's a great thing for us, and I'm very proud of that.
Yes. And I think it illustrates your compassion, that you're a compassionate leader. So it's not as cutthroat. It doesn't have to be the way it has always been. It can be changed. People say to me sometimes, but that's not possible. I always say, why? Why is it not possible? Change can't happen overnight. It takes time
Yeah.
to get it right. But you've got to start somewhere, and it sounds like you are, which leads me to, I guess, back to your daughter, back to where we talk about teachers and the schooling system. How do you think the workplace, so let's say your daughter going into work, when she comes into the workforce, how do you think companies can, or if you were a business owner, and well, you are, you could cater for her needs? So
Yeah, that's a very good question.
because that's what we want. I guess that's my big mission on this, is that within schools, we're hoping that it's going that way, and it is. It's taking time, of course, but our children will go into like myself, go into work with whatever industry that they decide to go in. And obviously with AI now, we don't have a clue what that might look like, but we'll make efforts to, what my mission is, to make efforts to make that change for when that time comes. So, how can we create them companies to facilitate the
But
unique needs?
that's a fantastic question, and I haven't thought about it yet as much as I'd like. However, for me, logically, it's a vision from the top, and so obviously it comes from me for this particular company. I mean, what I would like to do is create more awareness as a corporation, as a company, as to what that means, and what would make it into a good workplace for neurodivergent people, right? And get heavily educated on that, and that comes from the HR part as well, right? It's a human resource
Yeah,
function.
it starts at the onboarding process of new staff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's very important that this is looked into. I really believe so. And so it has to start with education and honestly best practices as to what is out there and what do people do. And then from there, you can kind of customize it for yourself. If you're a good company, meaning that you have there's good leadership, if your values are if part of your values are around people. So one of our values is it's called people first. So it's not customer first, right? Although clients are important, and it's not suppliers first. Suppliers are important as well. It's even the staff, the team are important. So when we say people first, it means whoever you deal with, and that includes the internal and external, right?
Yeah.
So I must say, though, if I'm going to be completely honest, those are the values coming from the top, and as we've restructured recently, the culture is forming into those values that we're discussing, that we're implementing. And that's probably the biggest challenge, to be very honest with you. Like just getting that done and the way you want it to be done. It's so hard, but it's doable. And you try and you aim for this and you keep going. But I think it starts, to answer your question, it starts from the values of the company, and then actually just even copy pasting another company's way that you like, it's better than nothing. And then from there you can work it out. But I think the want and the need has to be there, you know.
Yes.
So I just don't know if people really in the cultures, certain cultures, if they will still look at it as a stigma, right? As a taboo thing. And that's a problem.
Some places they are, and the UAE's vision is definitely a lot more of an inclusive one. So it's great to see companies are starting. And
Yeah.
when we talk there about companies making them changes, there's not one company that's fully there yet. It takes time. It's like any change; it has to take time and understanding, and that starts, as you said, with awareness, with education. And I suppose for you, it's a personal investment, because you can say, okay, my daughter is going to go into this world. So I want to create the best I can for her.
100%. Yeah.
So that motive is there. When I work with people, honestly, I will only work with them if they really believe in what they're doing, because otherwise they will tick a box of, yeah, we're an inclusive company. But unless they are, unless that's really something they're passionate about, there's no, obviously, yes, okay, I'll go in, I'll educate them, build awareness, and then maybe they might be understanding and say, actually, yes, I'm really on board now. But if it's just a tick the box exercise, I want to work with real change. That's what's important for me, and it sounds like you guys are doing that in there.
Yeah. No, we're definitely going in that direction. I would like to finish all this stuff yesterday.
We all would. I mean, I would love to have a completely different world. There's only so much change I could make in my time here, but I will do the best I can. And like I always say, my daughter's only 2. We don't know her neurotype. I just know that little me, I wouldn't want little me growing up in the world I grew up in.
I agree.
Today, if I could avoid it, if I could parent my inner child, knowing what I know now, I would want it to be different for her. So I guess that's the motivation behind it. So I won't stop, and that's why it's, as I said, not a tick the box exercise, it's a real passion and a real want for change.
That's exactly how I feel. And actually, now that I think about it, over the years, because of my experience as an employee, I definitely sacrificed, believe it or not, some revenues for the betterment of the staff. And I don't know if I regret that or not. Like, maybe it wasn't like not all of them were grateful for it or loyal about it, to be honest with you. But so now I've kind of learned how to balance that out now. I think now in my next phase in my career, there's going to be a balance. About the cutthroat part, we had one of our staff recently was very rude to a client, insulting. We have no place for that here. You're fired. You're fired, because it's not the first time, right? So that's the cutthroat. That if you call that cutthroat, that's acceptable cutthroat, right? But in terms of having, because that's an outlier. Like, you can't have that in the company, because you're allowing people next to that person who's a good person doing good things, seeing that next to them, it's not going to help you. So I think that's where the compassion and the cutthroat, if you want to call it cutthroat, has to be there. It's about that balance. So, yeah, I mean, look, the way I see it is just like a man or a woman who's got her own values and boundaries. A company has to have the same values. Yeah. I mean, have to have their own values and boundaries, and just kind of go with that line of thinking and go with that. And it is what it is. Like, whatever happens after that has to happen.
Well, I think you saying that that individual knew the consequences if they continue that behavior. It's back to your daughter, where you say, look, if these are the consequences. So, by making a certain decision that there is a potential to be this outcome. They made the decision. You've created an opportunity for them, and it didn't happen. So I don't think that's cutthroat. I think that's just, look, we're respecting ourselves as a company. We're respecting the employees that are here, and that individual obviously does not fall in line within that culture, and perhaps they're better suited somewhere else. And
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes that gives us, like, that as individuals gives us opportunity for growth of, what do I need to do? What do I need to improve within
Yeah.
myself? And maybe
Yeah.
there's a different career path that's better for
For
me.
sure. I mean, just that's actually a very good point. I don't know if it's going to add value to this talk, but I have had to let go of people before, and it was tough.
Yeah.
But they weren't welcome here because they weren't doing the job well, and they weren't successful. And I knew their passion, for example, wasn't insurance; it was honestly fashion. Because I'd walk around and they're like, "Hey, is that the new cologne from Dolce Gabbana?" I'm like, "How the hell did you know that?" That's their passion. And
Yeah.
then they weren't performing. I'm like, "Listen, I think it's best that you find your passion. I'll give you, there's a 1 month, whatever the severance thing is, you get that as your right. But I think this is where your passion is. Go for it." And then, like, they're sad about leaving and my money. I'm like, "Listen, you're going to find your money when you find your passion. This is your passion. It's obvious." And I was so happy that about a year later, I got a message from that same individual say, "Thank you so much. I'm back home and I'm doing exactly this fashion in technology, fashion tech or whatever, and I'm doing really great. So thank you so much for that." I'm like, "Okay, thank God that worked out." I mean, that you're right. I mean, it's not the right fit,
Yes,
and there's a right fit somewhere else out there, and there's a lot of responsibility on leaders of businesses to kind of make that call. It's tough, to be honest with you, but it's, if you're in this position, it's part of the role that you have.
it is. I imagine not an easy one. But you you have a certain culture, and you want to keep that, and I do think them opportunities that can be so tough on people initially, it creates so much growth for them. And I know you've said regret a few times. I don't, with different aspects, but I don't believe in regret. I think what's happened has happened for a reason, and we learn from them experiences. So it's almost part of our, what's not, it is part of our growth. And for them individuals where they weren't performing, they didn't align with the culture, they'll find their way, the right way, if they use that as an opportunity. So I think change is hard, is real opportunity for growth.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So, is there anything we didn't talk about today that you would like to talk, that you'd like the audience to hear about?
I mean, I just think that parents, I think now with the way that life is now, um, financial responsibilities on both sides, I think that causes a lot of imbalance in the home. And I think um, we I urge parents to, what's the word, to really look at what do you want out of life, you know and if you have kids, are you present for them? And I think there's so many children out there that are lonely, and I don't think it's fair. And this is something that I'm very passionate about. If you're going to be a parent, you don't have to be a perfect parent, but there has to be in my opinion, there must be a vision of being as present as possible. And if you're not able to be there for whatever reason, if you're not able to show up, there has to be a good reason for that, and they need to be part of that decision growing up, because our job, when we put people in life, they're part of society, and so we have to contribute to that in a positive way. I mean, what's the point? They're not going to stay in your house forever. So I wonder sometimes, what is the purpose of having a family and having kids, and what are we doing here? There is a big responsibility to that, and I think that we don't do enough to think about it enough um, to have a positive community around us. I just think it's too transactional almost, and I believe that has to improve, and I think it's getting a little bit worse. um, it's tough. Life is becoming more difficult. It's very fast. uh, Making money, things are getting expensive. And there's reasons for that. But I think if we sit down and strategically think as a family, I'm talking with any parents and whatever it is, and even with your parents and the children overall, think strategically what you want as a family and be aligned, you can have a beautiful life. And I think that's very important.
I really love that point. And I don't even know where to start. That alignment and that communication as a family, not just we're the parents, you're the children, you do what we say. That family network that works together. I think you're building strong children to work in a society and bring back that community. I think that we've lost because we've all become quite individualistic. And what really intrigued me was what you opened with, because when we had our daughter Sienna, we people always say to you, "Are you going to have another? Are you going to have another?" And we said, "Oh, we don't know. We'll assess when she's 2. We want to let her be a baby and explore that." But for me, the question always comes: can I give another child what I can give her emotionally? Can I be there? Can I be present as a family? Is that possible? I don't know yet. Don't know the answer to that. So if anyone asks, we don't know if we're having another child. Not right now. But I think that's so important because I chose to be a parent. I didn't choose to have children. I chose to be a parent, to be a mother. And before career, before anything else in my life, her upbringing is the most important. So every decision we make is around her. And when she's able to make, and we do small decisions now she makes, but what she wants to wear or what she might eat. But she will be involved in every decision that she can be, that she's equipped to, that she's emotionally and mentally mature enough to be able to deal with as life goes on. But the question that you opened with is, are you able to give that to the same to your children? Are you able to be a parent, to prepare them for the world they go into, to ensure that they are able to cope in society? And so I think it's really, really important. I'm so grateful that you brought that up.
It's everything for me. And I really believe that, the way we treat our children is everything. It's a reflection of who we are, and I think we're losing that a bit, and I don't think it's fair for them. And I don't think I look. We have a lot of potential. Life is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's a test actually, but it doesn't have to be bad. It's
No.
That's my point. And you can really have a beautiful life. And if you're very much into spiritual, if you're religious, there's a bigger thing out there than just what's in front of you. And I'm not saying that in general. I'm talking about there is, there. Look, I believe there's a potential out there for us to have a good life, and I think running the rat race, running after things, we lose sight of what's important. And I've seen, you mentioned regret earlier. There will be lots of regret if you are not spending enough time with your children and then they leave, or you didn't spend enough time talking to your father and he passes away. I mean, there is something there to that, right? I think there's an opportunity right now to just simply slow down, right? And just go and just simply be present with your family while achieving your goals. There is a way, I believe. And I think that we should be able to achieve that. And I think it's just simply amazing. And I'm very grateful for the people in my life. And I think that kind of gratefulness is the gratitude I've been able to really appreciate recently, has really transformed my life to the next level. And I hope that's taken to account for everybody as well. Like they all have a chance to be grateful for something. Because I'll tell you something, I believe that life could always get worse. I mean, if you're not, it can, as long as you're breathing, it can always get, things can be taken away from you. It could happen. So let's live each day in the moment. And I mean that in terms of what's in front of you, who is in front of you, what is in front. Are you able to watch your favorite sport? Are you able to talk to your favorite person? Are you able to make that joke? These things. And so I think it's very important that it gets lost. And yeah, that's what I want to say.
A wonderful message to end with. I think very important to slow down and be present, because life flashes in the blink of an eye, and those people that we love and are so important will be gone before we know it, in whatever way that is.
Yeah.
Whether it's life takes its course, and or our children grow up and have their own lives, that it will change. So I think it's very valuable, and I hope people really take that message seriously. Start making that change.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Your voice is honestly so appreciated today.
Thank you.